Welcome. This is a new topic that we're going to handle. This is for Business Studies Grade 10. So I trust you're completed entrepreneurial qualities. Now we're going to focus on the forms of ownership, which is topic 4. So just a quick recap. We've done corporate social investment, corporate social responsibilities, entrepreneurial qualities, and now as an entrepreneur, as your business expanding or if you're starting, you need to make a choice on what type of ownership you want to run your business as. And this is where we're going to start. Today's an introductory topic, so we're going to look at a lot of terms, and I want you to focus specifically on them. This will be your foundation of if you will be able to understand it. So we're going to build a lot on your work. And on your grade 9 work, we did some forms of ownership, but this will be the work that you need to understand from now till matric. Okay, so we're going to look at different terms. After this, we're going to start with outcomes. We're going to look at factors that you must consider when you choose a form of ownership, and we're going to look at the different types and characteristics. Okay, so let's start with outcomes. What you should be able to do after this lesson, you should be able to name the factors that's considered when choosing a form, explain the difference between profit and non-profit organizations. Okay, outline the forms of ownership and classify them into profit and non-profit, and define the meaning of different forms of ownership. From here on end, we will continue as we progress. So the first 3 is very important. First 3, 4. Okay, so let's start with the terminology. First one of the forms of ownership. So a form of ownership is the legal position of the business and the way it is owned. Okay, so you need to understand this is the legal position. Who owns it, who's responsible, who gets the profit. Maybe we should start here. In grade 9 we did the work and we said, okay, we've got 4 factors of production. Your entrepreneur, your capital, natural resources, and your land and building, natural resources, and entrepreneur, capital, natural resources, and land and buildings. Okay, man, almost didn't get it. So now you have to combine the 4, and that's by using the entrepreneur has got to combine it, and he has to make a product in order to sell it. Okay, and he starts a business in order to make a profit. He will sell something in order to make a profit. Now he will have to start to say, okay, when I do this business, what will my legal position be? Okay, will it be will I be responsible? Do I take all the profit, or will I create a legal entity that will be self-sufficient? It will be on its own. If something happens to me, the business will continue, or if I die, then the business will die with me. So we need to consider these different types of ownership. And remember, if this is just for the formal sector, right? Informal sector, they're not registered, so they will not discuss this. So continuity. What does continuity mean? When you think of the word continue, it means going on. So that's right. It will mean the business will continue to exist even if there's a change of ownership. For example, a member or a shareholder dies or retires, it means the business will continue to exist. Now, this is one of the questions you need to ask. Is there continuity in this form of ownership, or is there not? So it differs from each form of ownership. Surety, that means you're sure or certain of something. Then that, and I'm lying, it means that you accept liability. So actually, yeah, you're so sure of something, right, that you will accept liability, and you're so convinced. So you accept liability for the debt. So you say, okay, you know what, if something happens, I will be liable, but I believe so much in this product, I don't think it will happen. Okay, next one, securities. That is shares and bonds that's issued by a company. Now that's normally just for your private or public companies, your bigger companies, and that's what they use to create capital. And by selling shares or bonds, so that's the security. Limited liability means you are only liable for a specific amount that you've invested. Okay, your losses are limited. So let's say as an owner you've invested $1 million, and then you're only liable for that $1 million. Okay, you can't be held liable if you it's a limited up to a point that you're liable for your losses. Unlimited liability on the other hand, if you are liable for it, they can own up, take your personal assets, sell them in order to pay for the debts of the business. And that's not a good place to be in. A memorandum of incorporation, this is an important one that you need to note. That's a document and that specifies your rights, your responsibilities, the duties of the shareholders, directors. So this basically is your constitution of a company. Okay, what is the foundation of the company? It's your memorandum of incorporation, and that means, well, who does what, what's your rights, what's your responsibilities, and what's your duties. Okay, so if you're part of that company, you need to understand the MOI. Next one, a sole trader, that's a business that is owned and controlled by one person. Okay, it's one person. He will make all the decisions, take all the responsibility, and take all the profit. Okay, so sometimes a smaller business will start off as a sole trader, sole proprietor, and as it grows, they might consider alternative options. But if you like working alone and you like making decisions and it's quick and easy and you like all the profit, then this is a good form for you to consider. A partnership, this is now where there's agreement between two or more parties and they would agree to work together. So someone might finance it or they might split the financing 50-50 and they split the workload, but they want to pursue a common goal and they want to achieve a common goal and they will split the profit as per their agreement. So that's a partnership. That can be any amount, so it's normally between 2 and 20. Cooperative society, that's an autonomous association of persons united voluntarily to meet a common economic or social need or aspiration through a jointly owned and democratically controlled enterprise. That's a mouthful and you can just study it like that, the cooperative society. A company, what is a company? It's a legal person that has capacity and powers to act on its own. Now, this is where you'll get the legal differentiation between sole proprietor, where the business is the person is the business. There's no differentiation between him and the business. So he will be fully liable, whereas a company is seen separate from the owner or the founder. Okay, the business will continue without him, but the business is then a legal person. With a sole trader, the person is still the legal person. Okay, profit companies. This is a company that was started with a person to create wealth or financial gain for itself and for its shareholders. Non-profit is a company that was incorporated not for profit or not for gain, but for the benefit of a community. Last one, public company. A public company is a voluntary association of one or more persons, and that's governed by the Company Act 71 of 2008. A private company is a voluntary association of one or more persons. A personal liability company. Now you need to differentiate that between a private company and a personal liability company. So it's the same as a private company, but it's a personal liability company. It's a voluntary association of one or more persons. We'll get to the difference in the next lesson. State-owned company. The state-owned company, SOC, is a legal entity that is created by the government. That's your South African Airways, Eskom, etc. It's all the companies that the state have majority shares in or that they own it, and that's important for specific rendering of services. Just a note, a couple of years ago, SAA and Eskom was one of the top service providers in the world. They were given awards for their outstanding serving of the people of South Africa. Just shows you what can happen in a few years. Okay, partnership article. There's a document that contains exhaustive provisions with regards to the matters concerning the business and the partners. Okay, and this is probably the last one. Prospectus. So this is a document that will invite the public to buy securities or shares. So this is your document that will state who the company is, what they stand for, what they want to achieve, what they sell, how they do it, and then you buy in and you buy shares. Okay, or securities. AGM, this is a meeting that's held on a yearly basis once a year, where all the general meeting shareholders gather together, and then they receive a report on how the company has done, what's the growth, where their failures, their assets, what's their liabilities, what's the future for the company. So it's just reporting back. Directors, that's the people that's elected to the board of a company, and they will represent the shareholders' interests. So they'll make the day-to-day decisions. They will make sure that they carry the shareholders' interest at heart, make sure that there's profit, or do their best, but they will work in that capacity for the company. Audits, that's where the business's books or the accounts are checked to make sure that all the operations are honest. And these are quite strenuous processes. So, here we start with the fun stuff. What do you need to consider for a form of ownership? You need to understand the size and nature of the business. If it's going to be a small business, then you don't need to start a public company. Why? It's expensive to start a public or a public or private company. You need to register it. It takes a while to register, and you will probably not need all the benefits. So you can start off small. Or if you want to start big and you have a big market and you've got already a few clients lined up, then there will be a lot of other benefits for you to register as a company. It all depends on what your needs and wants. Okay, size and nature. Second one is the way in which a business is controlled and managed. Okay, you need to understand who will make the decisions, who's going to be responsible, who's going to take the profit. That will impact your form of ownership. Who will bear the risk? How are you going to raise capital? Are you going to do it alone with partners, or sell shares, or try and borrow? It's all questions. And how will profit or losses be dealt with? Are you sharing profit? Do you want it all for yourself? Do you take the risk on your own? And who's responsible for debts by the business? So who's liable? These are very important questions. And another one is tax implications for profits earned. So how will the tax be paid? What's the implications? And then what's the lifespan of the business? So will it continue after? Do I establish this to be a lasting company, or is this just a company just for myself? And if I die, the company dies. Okay. That's normally your sole proprietors. And then the vulnerability of the business in terms of lawsuits or a legal person. So let's discuss the first one, profit versus non-profit. So profit-making company, they've got one aim. They want to make a profit. So they are incorporated for financial gain for shareholders. It's set out in the memorandum of incorporation. And that specifies that there's directors, shareholders, what's the rights, duties, responsibilities. But it also sets out the number of shares that the company is authorized to issue. So that a share is something that you sell part of your ownership to another person or a company. They will buy into your company and they've got a portion of ownership. That means they want a return on their investment, normally in the form of dividends. But now you need to convince them to buy a piece of your business. Okay, a share. That's why they call it a share. If you have a pie and you cut it into different slices, you are sharing a piece. Okay, so they've got a share. Now, you only have so many shares. If you take a pie and you cut it in pieces, if you cut it in 4, you've got 4 pieces. If you cut it in 8, you've got 8 pieces. You can't sell more. That's the amount of shares that you have to sell. Okay, if you just think of this, if you want to sell more than 8 pieces of pie, but your pie is only 8 slices big, how are you going to do it? How are you going to determine the value then of your slices? So it's important to understand. Non-profit making companies, it's established for charity purposes or promote socio-cultural activities, so it's there for the benefit of the society. It's not for gain. And in the memorandum of incorporation, it defines the purpose and its operations. It's there for community, and it's the company have an independent legal entity, but the board of trustees is protected unless found negligent or fraudulent. So it's still a legal entity, the company, but if there's a suspect of fraud or negligent behavior, then the board of directors or the board of trustees will be prosecuted. Okay, so the different types. Now you'll see there's a few different pictures that I tried to share. So the first one is your sole trader. That's the top right. That's a one-man show. He can do everything on his own. Then a partnership is the handshakes, where you try and do have a few friends or people that you trust. They come together, they start a business. Close cooperation. That form of ownership doesn't exist in the fact that you can't start it anymore, but the government will honor if it's still a close cooperation. And then you get your personal liability companies, you get your private companies, your public companies, state-owned, non-profits, and cooperatives. So what you also need to know today is the forms of ownership, what is profit and non-profit. Basically, everything is profit companies, from private companies, personal liabilities, public companies, state-owned entities, and your sole and partnerships. But non-profit, the only non-profit company is a non-profit company. Hope that makes sense. Okay, so this was the introduction, and you need to understand these concepts, and it will make a lot of sense the rest of the work if you understand this. Okay, so take time, make sure you understand it. Watch this video 2 or 3 times in the class. Make your notes, and then we'll start on the next video with sole proprietor and partnerships.